Number one, for part A, whenever a problem asks for you to describe a distribution, there are 4 things that you should mention. 3 big ones, and then in the case of this one, it's 4. And just to remind you, we did this all the way back in chapter 1. Shape, outliers, center, and spread. Shape, outliers, center, spread. And you should do all of these in context of the question. And literally, the points that they give you for part A are, they have the 5 criteria. Did you mention shape? Did you mention outlier? Did you mention center? Did you talk about spread? Did you do it in the context of the problem? And look for those 5 things. If you did all 5 of those things, they gave you full credit. If they gave you if you did 3 or 4 of them, they gave partial credit. Otherwise, they gave you no credit. Shape of this distribution. The shape of this distribution is skewed, and the tail that is causing the skewness is on the right side. So this is skewed right. Since the shape is skewed right, usually that means we use the median as our measure of center. But first, let's talk about outliers. We have a possible outlier right out here. So there's one between 20 and 22.5. Center, the median, since this is a histogram, we have 60 tip amounts, is the 30th, around the 30th value, which is somewhere in here. So between, or from, somewhere in between 2.25 and 5. The spread here, you could talk about IQR, or you could talk about range, or you could make a general statement about how a lot of the lower values are all packed together. A big bunch of the values are there, and there's almost no values on the high end. That would also be a discussion of spread. But you need to talk about all 4 of these things. And always talking about shape, center, and spread. And then if there are outliers, you should mention that too. If it talks about describing a distribution, and then if it talks about comparing a distribution, you should also include comparison language, like saying between these 2 distributions, the means are the same, or this has a higher spread than this one. But this time you're only commenting on one distribution, so you don't need to worry about that for this problem. So those are the things that they're looking for you to talk about in part A. And I left you a comment saying which ones you talked about and which ones you neglected to talk about. Part B. Most people had the right idea on part B, but they just weren't as thorough in explaining it as they needed to be. So, the mean. The calculation for the mean is total of all the values divided by how many there are. And if an $8 tip gets changed to 18, N is the same, but the total goes up by how much? If we're going from $8 to $18, how much is that an increase by? It's going to go up by 10. So in the formula, I have this total that is the old total plus 10 so plus 10 over my sample size, which I had said was 60. So more specifically, the mean is going to go up, increase by 1/6, by 10 over 60. Because n is not changing, but the total is going up by 10. Median. Middle number. We had decided was between 2.25 and 5. And so we list out all the numbers, figure out which one is in the middle. We know that we talked about in part A that the median was somewhere between 2.25 and 5. So what's going to happen if my 8 changes to an 18? It goes from being above the median to still being above the median. So the median does not change. The median is not affected by this value. Maybe if in the list I took a number below and made it to be a number above instead, then it would affect the median. But since it's above the halfway point, and then it moves and it's still above the halfway point, then the median in that case doesn't change. So let me just give you very quickly what AP's answers were, just so that you see, especially for part A, you see how that outline of shape, outlier, center, spread can turn into a series of sentences that gives a comparison. The distribution of Ravin's tip amounts is skewed to the right. Right away, we're putting in the context of the question. Right? We're not just saying like the median is 5. We're saying, oh, the median amount of tips would be $5, and that gives me context of the question. Skewed to the right, there's my shape. There's a gap between the largest tip amount and the second largest tip amount, and the largest tip amount appears to be an outlier. Outliers. The median center tip amount is between $2.50 and $5. The tip amounts vary, spread, from a minimum of between 0 and $2.50 and a maximum between $20 and $22.50. About 78% of the tip amounts are between 0 and $5. So a large bunch in that 0 to 5 range in that lower end. So shape, outlier, center, spread, all put in the context of the question. One more thing to point out is that they didn't give specific values. They didn't say the median was 5, because you can't tell that in a histogram. When we said where the outlier was, we said it was between these two values. That's all we can know from the histogram. We don't know exactly where it is without actually getting the list of numbers. And then part B, it's showing, I showed how this got calculated. I would say to get credit, you should at least say that an amount got added to the total. That like the $10 got added to the total and that the sample size didn't change. Talk about the structure of how the formula works. And then for the median, The median would not change because the current median is here, and both 8 and 18 are greater than that. So we're taking a value above the median and then still putting it above the median. So where the halfway point is doesn't change.